There is a moment in every power dynamic where the tables turn, not with shouting, not with revenge, but with quiet, decisive action. That moment is when you walk away. People spend their lives trying to gain power by holding on, proving their worth, fighting to be seen. But the paradox is this. The moment you stop needing to be chosen, the moment you stop begging for validation, is the exact moment you take control. Walking away flips the script instantly. It tells the world, I don't need to fight for what should already recognize my value. And when you do that, when you leave without fanfare, without drama, you cause a shift so deep that the other side doesn't even know how to respond, because they were counting on your desperation. They were depending on your emotional attachment. They were feeding off the belief that you needed them more than they needed you. So when you walk, with steady eyes and a calm heart, the game ends. You stop being a player, they become the one left in confusion. This is the power move most people are afraid to use, because it requires something rare: self-respect, discipline, emotional detachment, the ability to say, this no longer serves me, and I won't lower myself to beg for what doesn't align with who I'm becoming. You see, real power isn't in holding on. It's in knowing exactly when to let go. The moment you walk away from the negotiation, the disrespect, the half-love, the toxic environment, the one-sided dynamic, you reclaim everything. Because people will test your boundaries. They will push, they will pull, they will pretend to care just enough to keep you nearby, but not enough to truly honor you. And you have two choices: play their game or end it. Walking away is how you end it. It says, I don't need to prove anything. I don't chase, I attract. I don't force doors open. I walk through the ones that open for me, and I close the ones that don't. That's the mindset that flips the power. You stop needing closure. You stop hoping for change. You stop being addicted to potential. And instead, you focus on your own growth, your own elevation, your own path. And here's the thing. They always notice when you're gone. They may not say it. Their pride won't let them. But the absence? It echoes louder than your presence ever did. You become a ghost that haunts them, not out of spite, but out of strength. Because you gave them a chance. You showed up fully. And when they failed to rise with you, you did the thing they never expected. You vanished. No explanation, no bitterness, just gone. And now, they're left staring at the space you used to fill, realizing too late what they lost. That's power. Not in revenge, not in proving them wrong, but in living so well, so freely, so focused, that they're forced to sit with their own choices. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself more. It means you know what you bring to the table and refuse to dine with people who can't appreciate it. That's not ego. That's evolution. You rise, not by staying in places that keep you small, but by having the courage to leave what no longer fits. That is why walking away is the ultimate move. It doesn't just free you, it shocks the system. It breaks the cycle. It sends a message. I am not afraid to lose you if it means finding myself. And when you live like that, you don't chase power. You become it. Most people are not afraid of losing someone. They're afraid of losing themselves in the process. That's why they hold on, so tight, so desperately, because they think letting go means they failed, that they weren't good enough, that their worth depends on whether someone else stayed. But the truth is the exact opposite. Real strength is in detachment, not coldness, not bitterness, but clarity. The kind of clarity that says, I love deeply, I give fully, but I don't abandon myself to keep anyone else. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring for yourself enough to stop negotiating your value with people who don't see it. It's about understanding that your peace is more important than someone else's approval. When you're attached, you become reactive. You chase, you explain, you overthink every silence, every delay, every mixed signal. Your self-worth starts riding the roller coaster of someone else's inconsistency. And that's how you lose control. But when you detach, You reclaim power. You step back and realize, I don't need to win you over. I don't need to convince anyone to choose me. I am not for everyone, and that's my freedom. That shift changes everything. Because detachment lets you observe without absorbing. It allows you to feel disappointment without letting it destroy your sense of self. It lets you leave with dignity, not because you don't care, but because you refuse to abandon your standards. And when you operate from that space, people feel it. They sense that they can't manipulate you emotionally. That guilt won't work. That silent treatments don't move you. That breadcrumbs and bare minimums will be met with indifference. You stop being an easy target for emotional games. And the ironic thing? The moment you detach, you become more attractive. Not because you're trying to be, but because your energy is no longer needy. You radiate self-respect. You walk into rooms without begging for attention. You leave situations without second-guessing yourself. You respond instead of react. And that is rare. That is magnetic. Because most people are too entangled to ever walk away clean. But you've done the work. You've learned that letting go doesn't weaken you. It clarifies you. It burns away the illusions and leaves only what's real. You understand now, if something costs your peace, it's too expensive. If someone requires you to shrink to fit their comfort zone, they're not your people. You don't play small to be loved. You grow and let the right ones rise with you. Detachment is the superpower that makes walking away possible. It's what allows you to say, this hurts, but it won't break me. I may care, but I won't cling. I may miss you, but I won't chase you. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It means you've stopped measuring your worth by how long someone stays. You've stopped assigning your identity to their validation. You've realized the most dangerous thing in the world is needing someone who can walk away from you without a second thought. And so you reverse the roles. You become the one who can walk away, not out of spite, but out of self-mastery. You stop proving. You stop performing. You stop apologizing for your standards, and when you do, the people who can't meet you there will naturally fall away. Let them. That's the beauty of detachment. It reveals what's real. It removes what was never solid. It protects your energy and sharpens your path. You no longer fear losing anyone because you trust yourself not to lose your soul trying to keep them. That's the power of letting go. That's how you win. Not with noise, not with drama, but with quiet, resolute, unapologetic self-respect. And once you taste that kind of peace, you'll never settle for anything less again. They expect the outburst. They prepare for the argument. They're ready for the fight, the tears, the endless explanations, because that's how most people react. Loud, desperate, craving some form of closure. But the most powerful move you can make is not to give them what they expect. It's not to scream. It's not to plead. It's to go silent, to walk away without looking back. That silence? It's not weakness. It's control. It's power. It's the deepest form of self-respect. You don't owe them a performance. You don't owe them the luxury of watching you break down. The more silent you are, the louder the echo of your absence becomes. See, drama keeps you trapped. It keeps you entangled in a cycle where emotion overrides logic, where reaction gives away your power. But when you choose silence, when you remove yourself from the battlefield entirely, you stop playing a game you were never going to win. The real win is walking away with your dignity intact. The real flex is not proving a point. It's knowing you don't have to. Your silence speaks volumes. It says, you are no longer worth my energy. I've already left this space mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I'm just finishing the exit physically. And the other person feels that. They feel that shift. It disorients them because people are not afraid of conflict. They're afraid of being ignored. They're afraid of being forgotten. They thrive on reaction. It validates their control. But silence? Silence cuts deeper than any insult. It forces them to sit with themselves, with the guilt, with the regret, with the realization that you walked away not because you were weak, but because you were done, truly done. Not pretending, not bluffing, done in a way that's calm, firm, and irreversible. That's the kind of silence that keeps people awake at night. And here's what makes it so effective. It's not manipulative. It's not a game. It's clarity. You're no longer interested in changing them. You're no longer begging them to see your value. You're done negotiating. You've stepped back, and in doing so, you've stepped up. You've stopped engaging. And without energy to feed on, the chaos collapses. That's why silence is feared by the insecure. Because they know they can't control what they can't engage. They can't twist your words if you say nothing. They can't flip the narrative if you give them no story. They can't pull you back if you've already gone. Silence is where you reclaim your peace, where you protect your growth, where you say, I refuse to bleed for someone who won't even bandage their own wounds. It's not revenge. It's not passive aggressiveness. It's liberation. And it takes strength. More strength than most people have. Because silence requires discipline. It requires the ability to feel hurt and still walk away with grace. To want to scream, but instead choose to rise. To have every reason to react and still choose peace. And once you learn to respond with silence instead of emotion, you become untouchable. People don't know how to shake you anymore. They don't know where to push. They don't know how to manipulate your heart. You move in silence, and your absence becomes your message. You don't threaten to leave. You just leave. You don't warn them about what they're losing. You let them discover it. Slowly. Painfully. In the quiet. And the best part? You don't even need to be around to witness it. You've already outgrown the moment. You've already stepped into a higher version of yourself. That's the real win. Not that you left, but that you rose, quietly, powerfully, without saying a word. The one who walks away first is the one who holds the power. Not because they're heartless, not because they don't care, but because they understood something the other side didn't. This is not a game worth playing anymore. When you walk away, you break the illusion. You collapse the dynamic that keeps you stuck, one person giving too much, the other taking it for granted. The person who stays and tolerates disrespect becomes predictable. The person who leaves becomes unforgettable. That's the truth. Because walking away isn't about proving dominance. It's about self-worth. It's about saying, I know what I bring to the table, and I won't stay where that's overlooked. And once you have that mindset, you no longer fear detachment. You no longer fear being alone. You become dangerous in the best way possible. You no longer beg for a seat. You build your own table. They can come or not. It no longer affects you. That's the energy shift that changes everything. People feel it. They sense that they don't own you. That your presence is a choice, not a given. That your love is powerful but not desperate. That if they don't step up, you'll step out. And you'll do it quietly, confidently, permanently. And here's where the control flips. The moment you walk away, the other person is forced to reflect. They might not admit it. They might act indifferent. But silence is never neutral. Your absence is loud. It disturbs the rhythm they got comfortable with. They were used to you reaching out first, fixing things, chasing, over-explaining. When that ends, they feel the void, and that void confronts them with their own behavior. Now the power dynamic is reversed. They're left wondering, where did that energy go? Why aren't you fighting anymore? Why did you leave so peacefully, without a word? And the answer is simple, because you no longer needed to prove anything. You walked away knowing exactly who you are. You left because you realized you were playing a losing game. The rules were rigged. The outcome was always going to cost your self-respect, and so you made the only move that matters. You exited. No warning, no spectacle, just silence, just power. Because power isn't in who speaks the loudest. It's in who walks away first and means it. It's in who's willing to risk being misunderstood in order to protect their peace. It's in who no longer shows up where they're not valued. And make no mistake, they will remember you, not because you made noise, but because you didn't. Not because you fought, but because you refused to. That refusal speaks louder than anything you could have said. That calm exit, that quiet withdrawal, it's unforgettable, because it shows you were never desperate. You were just willing. Willing to give, willing to try, but not willing to lose yourself. And now you've done what few have the courage to do. You left the table when respect was no longer being served. You didn't beg for it. You didn't wait for it. You just left. And now they're the ones left in uncertainty. They're the ones replaying every moment, wondering how they let you slip away. That's control. That's the move. Not revenge, not closure, not winning the argument, just walking away with grace, with strength, with complete inner peace. And once you learn how to do that, no one can hold anything over you again. They want you to need their approval. That's how they keep control. That's how they keep you small, by making you believe your value is measured by their attention, their affection, their validation. But here's the truth. You don't need their stamp of approval to be enough. You don't need to be chosen by them to be worthy. Self-worth is not something you earn from others. It's something you own within. The moment you understand that, you stop performing. You stop over-explaining. You stop bending who you are just to be accepted by people who only love you when it's convenient. Because that's not love. That's control disguised as care. And when you walk away from that, when you finally choose yourself over their approval, everything shifts. You no longer need to be liked. You just need to be aligned. You no longer chase validation. You walk with conviction. That's where your real power begins. Think about it. How many times have you stayed somewhere just because you didn't want to disappoint someone? How often have you said yes when everything in you was screaming no? How many times have you silenced your truth just to avoid losing someone who never deserved that power in the first place? That ends now. Because the cost of approval is too high if it means losing your identity. You don't exist to be tolerated. You're not here to earn someone's inconsistent affection. You're here to live in truth, to walk in strength, to choose peace over people-pleasing. When you finally understand your value, you no longer beg people to see it. You don't need to argue for your worth. You don't need to keep proving that you're good enough. You simply leave situations that don't reflect your standards. That's what self-worth does. It makes walking away not just an option, but the only option. You stop chasing people. You start attracting the right ones. Because people can sense when you're whole. They can sense when you're not waiting to be validated, when you already carry it within. That's when everything changes. You no longer move based on fear. You don't stay in dead-end situations because you're afraid of being alone. You embrace solitude as a sacred space, not as punishment. You're no longer running from silence. You're walking in it, fully aware, fully grounded. That energy, it's magnetic. It's rare. Because most people are still trapped in the cycle of trying to be enough for someone else. But not you. Not anymore. You've reclaimed your voice. You've remembered who you are. And now, anyone who comes into your life has to meet you at your level. Not because you're arrogant, not because you think you're better, but because you finally understand what it took to become this version of yourself. And you're not about to lower that just to be accepted. Walking away becomes easy when self-worth becomes non-negotiable. You don't tolerate breadcrumbs. You don't explain your standards. You don't shrink to fit anyone's comfort zone. You grow, and those who can't handle your growth get left behind. Not because you're cruel, but because you're clear. And clarity is power. You no longer need closure. You are the closure. You no longer need approval. You've already given it to yourself. And that makes you unstoppable. When you leave with peace, you leave with power. Not the kind of power that needs to dominate or control, but the kind that says, I'm done, and I don't need to prove it. The quiet exit is the most unforgettable one, because it's not fueled by rage, not driven by revenge, not loud with threats or final words. It's still, it's strong, it's clean. You don't slam the door, you simply walk out and never look back. That calm, that composure, that inner stillness, It shakes the ones who thought they had you figured out. Because they expected noise, they expected drama, they were prepared for the fireworks. What they weren't prepared for was silence. That's what lingers. That's what haunts. That's what echoes. See, the person who can walk away without chaos is someone who's already made peace with their decision. They've cried the tears in private. They've wrestled with the guilt, the confusion, the emotional weight. They've already grieved what they hoped it would be and what it never was. And now? Now they don't need closure. They are the closure. They don't need explanations. They've already found their truth. They're not walking away to make you chase. They're walking away because they finally realized they don't have to stay. That kind of exit isn't just an ending, it's a rebirth. Because when you leave with peace, you reclaim your story. You no longer exist inside the narrative someone else wrote for you. You become the author. You choose your own peace over their permission. You choose your own clarity over their confusion. You choose your freedom over their comfort, and that's what makes it so powerful. You don't leave out of anger. You leave out of alignment. You no longer argue about what's fair, what's deserved, or what's missing. You simply decide, this is not for me anymore, and you go. Peacefully, powerfully, permanently. The ones who stay behind will feel it. They'll replay every word you didn't say. They'll search for meaning in your silence. They'll wonder how someone could leave so effortlessly, and they'll realize you didn't leave easily. You just left completely. That's the difference. People who leave in anger often come back to negotiate, but people who leave in peace, they never return. Not because they hate you, but because they've healed, because they've grown, because they've outgrown the patterns, the cycles, the confusion, the settling. And now they live in a new frequency, a frequency where peace is non-negotiable, where presence is sacred, where energy is protected. You become untouchable, not because you're hard, but because you're whole. So let them misunderstand you. Let them invent their own version of why you left. Let them sit with the silence, because the ones who really see you will never put you in a position where you have to walk away in the first place. And those who did, they were never meant to come with you to the next chapter. Your peace is the proof. Your silence is the signal. And your exit? That's the exclamation mark they'll never forget.